So now we're going to turn to Juliet. I'm going to make her the presenter so she can take over. And Juliet is one of our product managers here at Grow. She bought a puppy during the pandemic quarantine and doesn't regret it yet. She loves that dog. It's very cute. And Juliet, we talked about this last week, but that map over your shoulder, what is that a map of?
It's a great question. So this map behind me is a map of the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a long distance hiking trail that spans from the border of Mexico up to Canada. It's about 2,600 miles and it goes through the mountains of California, Oregon, and Washington. In 2019, I spent quite a few months in hiking a lot of miles on that trail. And when I returned, I actually joined Grow and originally was on the sales and marketing team. Came from a business analyst background, fell in love with the product, and about 6 months ago had the opportunity to become the product manager over the metric builder and the dashboard, which is we're going to spend most of our time today in our workshop. So that's kind of my story. That's the map right there. So it's Oregon, Washington, and California.
So what sections didn't you complete?
So I hiked almost all of California, and then I've gone back and done, or I'm going to go back and do parts of Oregon and Washington over the next few years as well.
That's awesome. So Juliet is the PM over our Data Explorer, and so we're going to cover basically how to take that data set and that data warehousing data that Jason's already pulled in, and then how do we visualize it, how do we explore it, how do we change that from the dashboard, and then how do we share and operationalize that data. Super excited to show you all these new features. Let's get into it.
Awesome. So before we jump into our workshop, there's one thing I want to note. You'll continually hear me highlight the difference between transactional data and aggregated data. So here on the left-hand side, we have transactional data. You can see for each row, we have our opportunity ID with the associated type, the MRR, and the close date. Typically, you destroy your transactional data when you add a group by or a pivot transform on the data tab in Grow. When you add a group by transform, you'll get your aggregated data. Here in this example, we've grouped by type, we have the count of opportunity IDs, and we've summed MRR. It's important to note that Basic Builder, our previous metric builder, required that you brought in pre-aggregated data to visualize. This was fine, but you had to know exactly what you wanted to chart or analyze when you open the metric builder. Data Explorer allows you to chart off of your transactional data so that you can answer questions as you build your metrics. Charting off of transactional data also gives you access to features that you did not have in Basic Builder. For example, you get smart aggregations with dynamic date groupings. So now, as you build your metrics, you can change your date grouping from day to week to month to quarter. You also get access to chart level transforms so that you can slice and dice your data as you build your visualizations. You can now set dynamic goals in Data Explorer so you can compare your company's performance against target. You get access to dashboard level filtering and enhanced drill down capabilities in expanded view. Now with Data Explorer, we're going to do a deep dive into all of these new features, but not only do you get access to these new features, the time to insight is twice as fast. We've had numerous customers in our beta program testing Data Explorer over the last few months, and this is the feedback that we hear every time. I can now build my metrics with a few clicks. I can answer questions. My time to insight is so much faster. So let's jump into the app. And in the first metric that we're going to look at, it's a typical metric that you would have built in Basic Builder. And we're going to show you how to build that same metric in Data Explorer. So here I'm in Grow, and in the top left corner, you'll see that I'm in my Basic Builder metric. This metric is looking at total sales grouped by quarter, broken out by lead source against my goal. You'll also notice that I have a key value that's being populated from a spreadsheet function. Here, if we look at our data series, we see that we have each individual lead source that's coming from report 1, and we're pulling in a goal line from report 2, which is a Google Sheet. You'll also notice in our charted table of data that we have aggregated data. We're grouped by quarter, and each individual column is a lead source. If we go to the data settings and go right here, we'll have our transactional table of data. Here we can see row by row each opportunity, as well as all the data associated with that opportunity. If we look at the filter, group by, and pivot table transform that we've applied in the transformation pipeline, you'll slowly see that we've destroyed our transactional data while prepping it to get ready to chart in Basic Builder. Let's go ahead and show you how to build that metric in Data Explorer. We'll go ahead and we're going to say add new metric, and you'll be presented with this add data modal where you can choose from the data sets, the warehouse tables, the files, or connections that you have in Grow. Today, we're going to build from our closed won opportunities verified data set. Because this data set is verified, we know that the logic is final and ready for use. So in this table of data, we have MRR, which is monthly recurring revenue, and we have our close date for all of our opportunities. You'll see that each of these is a closed won opportunity. With just 2 clicks in Data Explorer, I can have a metric. Let's go ahead and say add data series MRR. Here you'll see that our close date is automatically selected as the grouping. Grow knows to automatically select the first date column that you have in your table of data. The default grouping granularity will always be by day, but you can come in here, change it to week, to month, or even to quarter. When we group this data by quarter, we can now see that we have data from Q1 2018 through this current quarter in 2020. Below the key values, you have access to all of your chart level transforms so that you can manipulate your data as you build your chart. For example, let's say that I only want to see data for this year. I can come in and I can change this date range to say this year. Upon selecting that date range, our chart will automatically update. Just like the date range filter, you have a custom filter that you can apply to numeric or text columns. So for example, let's say I want to filter down my sales data to only show me new business types. I can come in here, add a filter, and say type is one of, and we'll say new business. Again, our chart will filter down to meet that criteria. Next, we have the slice transform. The slice transform replaces the pivot transform that you would use in your Basic Builder metric. Here, you can say, I want to slice up my total MRR by a certain criteria. Let's say that we want to slice it by our lead source column. We can come in here and we can say, slice this by lead source. Upon adding that slice, each quarter is now broken down by paid, website, referral, and outbound sales. We can come in here and we can change the slice colors to our company branded colors. And we can come up here and change the chart type to be a stacked column. While we're up here, we'll also change the number formatting to be currency USD rounded. Awesome. So the next thing we're going to cover are automatic key values in Data Explorer. We know that in Basic Builder, adding a key value was kind of a pain. You had to come in, you had to add a spreadsheet function, you had to reference multiple reports, you had to label that in the spreadsheet functions, and you use single cell selection. With key values, it's much like adding a data series. You come in, you add a key value, and you select the column that you want to aggregate. Here, I'm taking the sum of my MRR over the date range of this year. You can come in and you can change the date range. So I could say, hey, actually only show me sales for the last 60 days, and your key value will update. For the purpose of this example, let's have it respect our chart date range. And we can also add an automatic comparison value. So you can say, hey, compare sales for this year versus 2019. Give it a name. Awesome. Now, last thing I want to show you here in Data Explorer is how to add a goal line. So historically in Grow, there's 2 ways you could add a goal line. One, you could do a static goal line in the builder, or if you wanted a dynamic goal line, you had to bring in a Google Sheet or a CSV file, either join that data together or chart off of 2 different reports. With Data Explorer, you have a new goal line module where you can enter dynamic goal lines based off of different frequencies and different date ranges. So let's come in here. We're going to say we want to enter multiple values for our goal. We're going to go ahead and change the color to green. Call this our sales goal. You'll need to select what data series this is a goal for. Since I'm only summing MRR in my chart, this is selected by default. You'll also select the frequency of your goal. So here, my frequency is going to match the grouping granularity of my chart. But if I wanted to define a monthly goal, I could come in here and select different frequency. And your start date and your end date will respect your date range filter that you have defined for the chart. So let's come in here, and in your data table, this is where you actually define the goals that you want to display. So let's say 40K for Q1, my Q2 sales goal is 50, 60K, and 70K for Q4. Upon pressing save, that goal line will be added to the chart. Now it's important to note that your goal lines are dynamic. This means that you set up goal lines for different groupings in different date ranges. So if I come up here and I change my grouping to be monthly, you'll notice that goal line is gone. It's only going to show up when my chart is grouped by quarter. This was intentional. If you want to have a monthly goal line, you can come in here, add a new goal line, and when you filter or use dashboard filters, you can come in, add those different goal lines, and they'll appear on the chart. Let's go ahead and finish setting up our metric. So we're going to add totals right here to the top. And the last step is we're going to select our filterable columns. So by default in Data Explorer, all filterable columns are selected.
So Juliet, can I interrupt real quick for a question?
Yes.
So the question is it possible to input values from the goal line from the dashboard so users don't have to be able to edit the whole metric just to update their goals? The answer to that is not right now, right?
Yeah, not right now. So you can only enter or edit the goal line in the builder. But one thing that we're actually thinking about is the ability to store your goals and grow. And so in that way, you would be able to go in, edit your goal line, say, hey, this is for my sales, and then that would apply to all the metrics on your dashboard. So that's something we're thinking about, but right now it's just in the metric builder.
Awesome. And then the next question was, is it planned to add functionality for cumulative row values for the line charts for a given time period? So cumulative sum, essentially.
It is, yeah. So we're kind of going to touch on some new data exploration features for data series in a bit. And we are planning to add cumulative sum as an aggregation type as well.
Awesome, that's great. Keep those questions coming, we love them.
Thanks, Josh. So back to filterable columns. Filterable columns will affect what columns you can filter by on the dashboard in expanded view. And they'll also affect what columns you see in the raw data and drill down table in expanded view as well. So if you don't want all of your columns selected, maybe they're just not going to be useful for filtering, or you don't want people on the dashboard to see that data, you can come in and deselect those columns. So for this example, is deleted. That's not going to be helpful to me on the dashboard. I'm going to deselect that. Let's go ahead and save this metric, and we'll give it a title. Upon saving the metric to the dashboard, you'll notice it's saved in this tile view where I see the key value and the trend of the data. I can drag this to be right next to the other metric, and in the bottom right corner, I can expand it. So here on my dashboard, I have side by side a basic builder metric and a data explorer metric. Like I said, with Data Explorer, you get smart aggregations, dynamic groupings, dynamic goal lines, and you also get dashboard filtering. So here in the top right corner, I have custom filters, a date range filter, and a date grouping. When I created this metric, I said, show me data for this year grouped by quarter. Well, what if I want to see data for last year? I can come up here and I can change the date range to say last year. Let's say last 6 months. And our chart will update. You'll notice that our basic builder metric does not update because it's not compatible with dashboard filtering. We can also change the date grouping. So my chart is grouped by month, but let's say we want to group it by week. Upon changing the grouping granularity, you'll see that now we're looking at data for the last 6 months by week, where again, our basic builder metric is completely static. What we have for the date range and the grouping is defined, and it's defined on the dashboard. When I remove these filters, you'll notice that the chart will revert back to its original metric settings from the builder. In addition to date range, you can also add a custom filter. So because I'm looking at a sales dashboard, let's say that I want to look at performance for a certain sales team. I can come in here, I can say sales team is one of, and let's look at Maggie's team. Upon adding this filter, you see that my metric filters down. And again, my key value will show me her total sales for this year versus the basic builder metric, which is completely static. The last key benefit that you get by building your metrics in Data Explorer is expanded view. So let's go ahead and let's look at this metric here. Again, this is our basic builder metric. You'll notice that raw data is completely disabled. This is because we're charting off of two separate reports. When raw data is disabled, so is drill down. So I can no longer drill into this data to see each individual transaction that makes up this number. I also can't use filtering in expanded view as well. When I navigate to my Data Explorer metric, here you see all of these different options to change the date range, the grouping, to add custom filters, and you'll also notice that raw data is not disabled. Here I see the table that's fueling my metric with each individual transaction. Let's go back to chart and let's start exploring. Let's say that we want to see data for all ranges, and we want to group it by month. Here we're looking at all of our data dating back to January 2018 through the current month. I see that looks like May of 2020 was our top performing sales month. I can come in and I can drill into this data and I see each individual transaction that was closed in the month of May 2020. This allows me to answer different questions. Why was May 2020 our highest performing sales month? Did we close a really large deal? Did we have a really high performing team? Did we really focus on one region? I can answer all of those questions by looking at this raw data. As part of our improved expanded mode, we've also created easier custom filtering that's faster through new UI. So what we can do is we come in here and we can say, hey, I want to filter this by sales rep. I can search for that column and I can say, let's look at Jason's sales. Upon adding that filter, you see that our key value and our chart will update. I can also come in and remove this and our chart will revert back. You'll also notice that we're now pulling out filters that you've applied in Data Explorer to expanded view. This will help anyone on the dashboard that's consuming the information know exactly what they're looking at. So here in this example, I can see that I'm looking at opportunities that are of new business. That's telling me that this metric is filtered out upgrades or existing business opportunities.
Juliet, can I ask you some questions? So people are stoked about these features, and I have like a lot of questions. So let's go through some of these.
Okay.
So one, will the filters be available within the share URL links? So if someone's not logged into Grow, will they be able to use those dashboard filtering things?
So dashboard filtering is not supported with share URL. That's something that we're thinking about as well, but you do have an unlimited user model with Grow. So if they want access to the dashboard filters, they can log in and use them in their account.
Great. And the next question is, so dashboard filtering is only compatible with the Data Explorer in the Chart tab, or also with the transforms in the Data tab. So let's cover like the different transforms in the Data tab and the Chart tab and how they interact.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to open up this metric to kind of talk through that. So in this example, we didn't apply any transforms on the Data tab. We did it all in the Chart tab. However, you do have access to still use these transforms here. So if you wanted to come in and you wanted to tag your data, you could still do that. But the chart level transforms help you so that you don't need to destroy your transactional layer. If you want to add dashboard filtering, it will only apply to the final table in the transformation pipeline. So in that table is also your charted report. So you can apply filters onto whatever table of data you chart right here. So if you do stuff on the Data tab, that's fine, but just know that it'll only reference that final step when you're using Data Explorer.
Awesome. Then a question about slicing. So the question is, can slice data have the same colors across multiple metrics on the same dashboard? And also, can this be managed in one location, kind of like the dashboard level filters are?
So you can have the same colors, but you can't manage it in one place. You would need to do that on each individual metric itself.
It is interesting, however, so if you're using a data set, right, we do have on the roadmap to basically allow you to reorder and rename and recolor slices. So there could be
Mhm.
something where it's like, hey, like based on the different divisions inside this data set, you could basically assign a color. That's definitely not on the
Yeah,
roadmap yet, but Juliet's going to give her email out at the end of this thing. Please email her. We'd love to hear that use case and make that a lot easier for you.
absolutely.
And then the next question is, so metric chart types, will they support the calculated fields so they can function with the dashboard level date range and date grouping?
Wow, that question could not have come in at a better time. That's what we're going to show you right now. So moving into the next feature in Data Explorer, they're calculated data series. Calculated data series allow you to create custom calculations as you build your charts. So to your question, you can come in, you can create dynamic calculations, add that as a data series, and then use dashboard filtering and grouping for that calculation. So in our workshop today, we're going to build average deal size by region. And it's important to note that in Grow previously, you would have had to know SQL to build this metric. And in fact, you would have had to know it pretty well. Here's the SQL required to get this outcome. With calculated data series, we've followed a Google Sheets syntax so that you can have the ease of use there, but you also have the functionality that you would get with like a case statement in SQL. And because calculated data series run against your transactional data, you still have access to all of your chart transforms and dynamic groupings. You get access to filtering on the dashboard and enhanced drill down capabilities in expanded view. So let's go ahead and jump back into Grow and show you how to use calculated data series. So again, we're going to say add new metric, and we're going to build off of the same data set. So first, let's add our grouping. We want to group our chart by close date. Adding a calculated data series is just like adding a typical data series, except you'll scroll down here and you'll say calculate. Here you'll be presented with a modal where you can enter in your calculation. We're going to start with a simple example and build to something a bit more complex. So in my data table, I have MRR, monthly recurring revenue, and I want to calculate ARR, which is annual recurring revenue. To calculate that, I need to do MRR times 12. It's important to note that with calculated data series, you must always wrap the column name by an aggregation. This is because we do group the data. Let's come in here, we'll say sum of MRR, we'll times this by 12, which will give us ARR. Upon pressing save, you'll see that that calculated data series is added to the chart. You'll notice that you still have access to dynamic groupings. So you can come in here and change the granularity. You'll also have access to the date range and filter transform as well. For this example, let's just say that we want to look at all data. Now, let's say that I want to build something a bit more complex. Here I'm looking at ARR by month, but I want to know what my average ARR is or my average deal size. I can come in here and I can divide this by the count of opportunities. So let's just say divide by the count there, and we'll call this average ARR. Upon pressing save, you see that this chart dynamically updates to follow that expression. Now BI, it's all about comparing one number versus another. So here I'm looking at average ARR, but I want to see average ARR by region. I want to know which region is bringing in the highest deal value. That's where conditional aggregations come into play. A conditional aggregation is a sum if or a count if. Basically, you say, I want to sum this column based off of the criteria of another column. Show you how to do that. So we're just going to restart here, and we're going to start typing in sum ifs. You'll notice that the autofill will help you define which parameters you need to enter. The first parameter is the column that you want to aggregate, whereas the next parameter is the column that you want to run your criteria against. So because I want to look at average deal size by region, my criteria column is region. Next, I enter in my criteria. Here, I'm going to say, I want to calculate average deal size for my USA region. I'm going to times this by 12 to get ARR. And then to get my average, I'm going to divide it by a count. And I want to divide it by the count of opportunities in that region. Go ahead and copy this. And we're going to rename this to say USA. So you'll notice that we have a helpful autofill here when you put in an incorrect expression. I did a count here rather than a count ifs. So I'll come in here and I'll edit that upon pressing save. And it's not liking this.
So Juliet, while you're working on that, I'm going to answer a few questions. So the question is, where do you find the calculated data series feature? It's right under the add data series. Click that, scroll to the bottom, and it's right there. And then the next question is the question previously about metrics and which ones support them. The question was about single value chart types, and the answer is yes, we're working on support for single value chart types with Data Explorer. And then the other question is about key values. So previously, when they had to use SQL to get the key value calculation for the current date, and if they didn't use SQL, it would calculate for the prior entire year. Is this solved now? And the answer is yes. So key values are much more intelligent now with Data Explorer, and they'll respect the date ranges you put in.
Yes, awesome questions. Cool, so here we see that our data series was saved to our chart, and now we're looking at our average deal size for our USA region. Like I said, we want to compare USA to other regions. So let's go ahead and we'll add a new data series, and let's calculate that same data series for the APAC region. So we'll come in, we'll say sum ifs, MRR, we'll say region is APAC, and we're going to times this by 12 and divide this by the count IDs, where region again is equal to APAC. Go ahead and copy this, and we'll save this as APAC. Upon pressing save, you'll now see that our chart is comparing average deal size in USA versus APAC. Go ahead and add in our final region, which is going to be EMEA. And again, we just need to change our criteria here. And we'll say EMEA. Awesome. Here in our chart, we have each individual region with our calculated data series. This is a lot to digest. Let's go ahead and change the grouping to be by year. And now we see year over year, the average deal size by region. We can see that our region or our deal size in APAC has held consistent year over year, whereas the deal size in USA and EMEA tends to fluctuate a bit more. We can come in here and we can add a custom filter. Let's go ahead and add in, again, that same filter for type, and we'll say new business. And upon adding that filter, you'll see that the criteria will update on the chart. So when you change the grouping and you add in these chart transforms, we're effectively rerunning this dynamic calculation every time to update your chart, which is super, super powerful. Because with SQL, once you entered the SQL, you destroyed your transactional data, you had the aggregated data, and it was completely fixed. So that's the power of calculated data series. Let's come in here and let's call this average deal size by region. And we'll save it to the dashboard. Again, we can move this over here, put it side by side. And just like you had access to dashboard filtering and drill down and expanded view for this metric we built in Data Explorer, you have that same functionality with calculated data series. So if we come in here and we update the date range to say, let's do last 90 days, you'll notice that our chart will update. Again, we can change the date grouping to be, let's say, weekly, and our calculated data series updates again. So you still have all of that functionality with the dashboard filters when you use calculated data series now. When we remove these, the charts will revert back to their original state. Here's a list of all of the operators and aggregations that we now support with calculated data series. You'll notice that we have our normal aggregations and conditionals. In our example today, we've really just scratched the surface of what you can do with conditional aggregations. You can add multiple criterias. You can use these different operators such as contains and is one of, and you also have your mathematical operators as well. One interesting thing here to point out is, although we do mimic Google Sheets syntax, we've added in these additional operators that Google Sheets does not support, but that you can use in like a SQL case statement. So by adding in these operators, we've given you the power of a SQL case statement, but the ease of use of Google Sheets. We're going to continue to add to this list of aggregations and operators over the next quarter so you can continue to create more dynamic and powerful calculated data series. So moving into our last section of Data Explorer, we now support conditional formatting in table charts. Conditional formatting allows you to differentiate and highlight values in your chart. This has been one of our most commonly requested features over the last year or so, and we're really excited that you have access to this in your account right now. So let's come back to our sales dashboard, and here we have a table metric. We can come in here and we can edit an existing table metric and add conditional formatting. Let's go ahead and open this metric into the builder, and you'll see that we have each individual data series. So not only do we now have conditional formatting, but we also have some new style improvements as well. For our account ID column, we can change the text wrapping to be click, and you'll notice that updates. We can also change, let's say just like the color of the column, and we'll want to bold this as well. And we can change the alignment. Let's left align this column. For type, let's just say we want to italicize the entire column. And for created date, this is where we're going to add our first conditional rule. Let's say that we want to highlight deals that were created in the last 30 days. We can come in here, we can add a rule. We can say if cell is within the last 30 days, then fill it orange. Upon pressing save, you'll see that each cell that meets that criteria is now orange. This tells me, hey, this deal was recently created. Let's get some eyes on it. Let's add another conditional rule to our stage name column. Just like we wanted to highlight deals that were recently created, let's highlight deals that are really close to closing, that are in the negotiation stage. We see that they have an 80% chance of closing. We can come in here and we can say stage name, we'll add a rule. And this time, because this is a text column, you'll have different operators, but let's say if cell is one of negotiation, go ahead and color it green, and we'll also bold the text. Upon pressing save, those cells that meet that criteria will have that formatting. Now we've done an example of conditional formatting on the date column, as well as a text column. Let's show you how to use it on a numeric column. And in this example, we're going to do two different conditional rules. So we're going to come in here and we're going to add conditional rules for our monthly recurring revenue. We know that our goal here for monthly recurring revenue is at least $3,000. We can come in here and we can say if cell is greater than or equal to 3,000, then let's color the text green. If the deal size is less than $3,000, we want to color it red. Again, we can do that like this. Less than 3,000, we'll color it red and we'll italicize it. Awesome. Now you'll see that each cell in this column either meets that criteria, we call it green, or it's less than and we call it red. When we save this metric to the dashboard, conditional formatting will also show up here, as well as an expanded view. You still have full functionality to filter your data. So let's say last 60 days, you'll notice that here we have a lot more orange columns or orange cells because these were deals that were created in the last 30 days. Awesome. And one just note here, so we started with table charts. We plan to add conditional formatting to all series charts as well. So start to look out for that next year. In the last part of our workshop, we're going to talk about sharing and operationalizing your data that you have stored in Grow. A large part of Grow's mission
Before we get into that, I got some more questions for you. People are really excited about these features as well.
Okay.
So first question is, does the calculated data series accept wildcards? So like, yeah, so we can do contains, right? But I don't think we support true wildcard characters like a star yet.
We don't yet. That's why we did contains and does not contain first, but we don't have wildcard operators just yet.
Then the next question is, so is there a way to add specific dashboard filters at the top of the dashboard? So you could have, for example, filter by salesperson visible to all users. So they don't have to go and add it one by one. The answer to that is not yet, right? We definitely want to make dashboard filtering as easy as possible, but right now they'd have to click that add plus add filter button to add that filter.
Yes.
And then someone just said that conditional formatting is the reason they're going to learn Data Explorer now. So that's very exciting. They're very excited about that. And then another
Awesome.
question is there a way to export only the data that is seen in the table metric? So for example, this open pipeline right here, is there a way to export only the
Mhm.
data that's actually showing?
That's a great question. So because this table metric doesn't have an aggregation, you could come here and you could go to raw data. You would just need to select the filterable columns that you have charted, and then you could export that. Eventually, we want to add an export option here in expanded view that says export chart values, and that would give you exactly what you need. But for now, there is a workaround by using filterable columns and table charts to do that.
Awesome. And then the question is there documentation for calculated data series, and are there examples? The answer to that is yes, there are. I actually wrote it. There's not examples yet because Julia is much better than I am, so we'll be adding examples later today.
Yes, great question. Thanks, Josh. So, like I said, last part of this workshop, we're going to touch on all the capabilities that you have to share and operationalize data within your company. Here at Grow, we're super passionate about making sure every single person at your company has the information they need to make better data-driven decisions, and sharing and operationalizing data that you store, analyze, and grow is at the core of that mission. So that's why, as part of the Grow 6 release, we have a brand new iOS and Android mobile app. Anybody with a Grow login can go download the app and check their metrics on the fly, see the health of their business or their company at any given moment in real time. We've also worked on a native Slack integration over the last year, where you have two options. You can post a metric immediately to spark a conversation, or you can set up a recurring post. You could say, hey, share this metric to me every Friday at 9 a.m. We also have data exports across the app. You can export data from the metric builder, the data set builder, the dashboard, and expanded view. We have a lot of customers that just use Grow as their centralized repository for all their data. So for example, they're bringing in all of their ad sale or ad channel data like Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, bringing in their CRM data and their marketing data from HubSpot. They then use Grow to clean that data, group it, and combine it into one report, and then they export that data outside of Grow. So not only is Grow the visualization layer, but you can use exports to operationalize the data across your company as well. We have automated PDF reports where you can generate a PDF report for an entire dashboard, send it out via email. We have customers that have this set up on a quarterly basis for the performance of their company that they send to their board of investors. We also have share URLs that you can generate. You can text it to someone, email it to them, Slack it, put it on Teams. Somebody can see a dashboard with the live data without a Grow login. And lastly, we have TV mode. Grow has a beautiful presentation layer that you can use to get your dashboards up on TVs and get your whole company rallied behind the same KPIs and OKRs. So that concludes the end of our workshop today. Thank you so much for coming. We're so excited that you now have access to these 17 new features as part of Grow 6. Just a reminder, my name is Juliet Fletcher. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to reach out to me over LinkedIn or send me an email at juliet@grow.com. Back to you, Josh.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Juliet. So there's a few more questions that I've been typing furiously the whole time. I'm like my fingers are tired already, but I'll keep answering those questions. And so I have a few housekeeping items that we're gonna cover real quick. So let me actually take over the presentation and I can share my screen. All right. So oh, I got to go through the slides again. Sorry. Oh, this looks so amateur. I'm sorry, everyone. Okay, cool. So the housekeeping items are, yes, the recording will be available. We'll be sending it out today. 2, all the links we talked about and all the help articles, we'll also be sending those out. And everything is live in your account right now. If you're not seeing it, we had a few people say they're not seeing it yet. It should automatically apply, but you might need to refresh or clear your cache and cookies. So we're also going to turn this back over to Rob for some final notes. Thank you so much for all your great questions. We'll continue to answer those. And yeah, look for that email with the recap and the recording and all the links soon. So turn it back over to you, Rob.
Great. Thanks, Jason and Juliet and Josh. Great job. This is a great team. They look young, but they've got each of them have years of BI experience and are really passionate about data and work hard to create a great experience for you guys. Let me share one thing. 2 weeks ago, I get an email out of the blue from a customer, a CEO, who said, Rob, this company had been losing $5 million a month for a long time. And, in a matter of a couple of months, we turned this profitable. And I credit all of that to aligning all the team around the right data inside Grow, and it's been that powerful for us, so thank you. And for us, this is why we do what we do. This is what gets us up in the morning. So I just want to thank all of you, our customers. You guys are amazing. And our team is fired up, and we thrive off of building software so that you can make data-driven decisions and win with data. So thank you. One of our brand values is accessibility. That means we're reachable, that we're accessible. If you have any feedback, questions, comments, please reach out to me. It's just rob@grow.com, or any of our team members. We're happy to help. Thank you for joining today. I mean, personally, I miss being in person like we have in the past years. And I miss the interaction that we have face-to-face, and we hope next year we'll be able to do that. In the meantime, stay safe, have a great rest of 2020, and thanks everyone for coming. Take care.